evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the podcast, the independent podcast. Fans by fans, and all the content is absolutely free. You can get us over at gersnet.co.uk, where you can get access to the forum, some great articles, and a wonderful history archive as well. And you can also get us on Twitter at Gersnet Online. We're live on YouTube this evening, and we'd ask that you like and subscribe to the channel, and please do join in the conversation in the comments as well, guys. Before I introduce my guests as well this evening, I need to give a shout out to our partners over at Forrest Precision Engineering. They're a subcontract Glasgow-based engineering company, and they've been a big commercial supporter of the Rangers for many years. And we're absolutely delighted that they're backing our podcast. You can get them over at forrestprecisionemg.com. And you can also visit the Forrest Precision Executive Lounge, a stunning new hospitality area within the historic main stand at Ibrox. For information on how to book this unique and intimate space, you can email the club via hospitality@rangers.co.uk. Joined tonight by my wonderful guest, Mr. Ben Harshaw. Ben, how are you feeling after last night?
I'm feeling great after last night. Still on a bit of a high from it. A lot less anxious than I was 24 hours ago. But yeah, I'm sure like most of the fan base at the minute, feeling positive.
Yeah, absolutely. Ben, can you hear me all right?
Yes, you were a bit funny at the start there, but no, it's coming through okay now.
All right, well, we just hope we can do that. No, it was a brilliant night. When I say brilliant, quite nerve-wracking at Ibrox. Everybody getting up the road. Extra time and penalty shootout. I've got to say, when it got to penalties, I was not fancying us at all. Just because I think penalties are more a mental thing than anything else. And let's be honest, we know the mental fortitude of our squad over the past few years. But to be fair, you need to give them credit, mate. They pulled it out of the bag in that shootout last night. More so, Jack Butland.
Yeah, no doubt. I felt that we were kind of due one in terms of penalties. When you look at Seville, you look at the League Cup final, I just felt, our luck has to turn in this area. And Butland sort of, hasn't been wonderful this season, and kind of owed us one, but he was really stood up and was counted when it mattered. So yeah, I agree with you on the mentality, but I suppose the team have shown a wee bit of mentality in terms of the comeback against Killie. You just don't know what you're going to get. That's the thing. You have the comeback against Killie showing mentality, then your next game you're awful. But then last night, it could have been easy. I know we'll touch on the game, but it could have been easy once you go 2-0 down to just. I'd have seen a Rangers team in the past just let that go, especially in the last recent times. And you end up losing 3-0 and you go out. So they showed a bit of character, showed a bit of mentality there, and they showed the game when it really, really mattered. So yeah, brilliant.
They did, absolutely. In terms of the team, Ben, were there any surprises in the 11 that Barry Ferguson made for you?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I think it was the obvious 11. I was pleased to see that he went for the more natural with Sterling playing on the right rather than playing Yilmaz. The only one I would have considered, and I probably wouldn't have done it, but I could have considered playing Yilmaz on the left, given that he knows Turkish football, given that Yefte is good, but has certainly got a mistake in him defensively. So I could have done that, but no, that if I was picking the team, it probably would have been the same one. It made sense to stay with that system. It worked last week. And yeah, given the players we have available, Dessers was brilliant last week. It just would have been unfair to drop him. Egeman's not in the best vein of form at the minute. And yeah, no, that was the obvious team. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, Yefty, I'm kind of in agreement with that one. I'm maybe not sure about him playing on Sunday. It wasn't great last night, but I mean, I suppose he made up with the flag waving at the end, so there's always that. I mean, in terms of it, I just wanted to mention this just off the cuff, Ben. I mean, in terms of the players that played last night, for me personally, it didn't really get much of a shout out, but I thought Conor Barron was absolutely immense. He was brilliant last week, just coming into the team kind of out the blue, especially being on a yellow card as well last week. I'm not sure if that continued on to last night or not. But he was an absolute dog in that midfield last night. Just running about, just trying to win everything, the passion, hunger, desire. Fair play to him. And, I think earlier in the season we played Lyon, who are obviously a very good side, and he did make that mistake. And when you're coming up against good players like he was last night, it could have been easy for him to maybe hide away and maybe let that mistake against Leon a few months later get to him. But I thought he was absolutely outstanding last night, an absolute dog in the midfield, and I was pretty gutted with him coming off, like, what was it, basically the first minute into extra time. But you could just see he was absolutely knackered. And as much as he wanted to stay on, he couldn't have gave any more. So I just felt in terms of him, Ben, just shout out to him. I thought he was immense.
No, he was brilliant. I mean, he covered every blade of grass. He was a Conor Barron that we sort of all fell in love with at the start of the season. In terms of he gives you absolutely everything. He's not afraid of a tackle. He will cover. He's just hard. You can just tell he's a hard player to play against. He does not give a minute to the opposition. And that's what you kind of need, because let's be honest, the players in that midfield for Fenerbahce have more quality than Conor Barron. There's no doubt. So he has to be, outworking them. He has to be dogged, and he was. So he's come in with the attitude that I'm getting a chance here, and I'm gonna take it, and I'm gonna give everything that I can. Especially. That was probably the biggest stage that he has played on. Well, it was the biggest stage that he's played on in his career. He's joined from a smaller club, and he's now playing for a place in the quarterfinal of a major European trophy. Aberdeen players can only dream of that. So he stepped up to the plate in terms of, yes, he had a dip during the season, but overall for his first season, to have come in for the fee that he's come in for his first season at Ibrox, he really has done well, because when he first came in, I said, "Oh, this boy will be sort of, you bring him on every 20 minutes if you have a game one sort of thing, maybe play him lower league opposition in the cup or whatever." But he's really made a case for himself, and earlier in the season he was undroppable at a stage, and he's made a case for himself to be challenging for a place in the midfield regularly, which is what we want, and it's what we need. When I looked at the bench in general last night, it shows what we need. We need players that are going to make an impact, and he is one that within the squad that can make an impact. It showed that when we looked at the bench and we were 2-0 down, and if it had gone to 3, there wasn't an awful lot on there that you're bringing on that you're thinking, "Oh, this person can really make an impact." You're just kind of there for the sake of new bodies and new energy. But he has proven that he has the quality, and he has the mentality already to be an important player for Rangers, not necessarily a starter week in, week out, but play his part in, and that's what you need if you're going to be successful over a season. You need players like that. You need your starters, your guaranteed starters, quality players, but you also need some who can come in when they're suspended, injured, or out of form.
No, definitely. And I mean, he's got the mental to work on. Obviously the same position, homegrown Scottish, etc., etc. So um, I think there are similarities there, just in terms of aggression and mentality. I think Ferguson was obviously a much better player, like, technically, but there's something about Conor Barron that I really like. And last night he was coming up against guys like Fred and Amrabat, who they were decent enough players for Man U, guys that were probably earning over 100 grand a week. They're really good players. I mean, if they would walk into any team in Scotland and absolutely squish it here, if they had the right mentality. So to come up against two guys like that, and I thought, to be fair, Fred and Amrabat were actually really good last night. I thought they controlled most of the game, but Barron never let it get to him. He just kept going and going and going and going, and that's what I like about him. He never gives up. It's that never say die attitude, and he just literally keeps going until he's got absolutely nothing left. The first half, Ben, I thought the first half was a pretty decent performance. I actually thought overall, to be fair, like, the 90 minutes and the 120 minutes, I thought we were decent. To be fair, I think I've heard some people say, "Oh, we were rubbish," and Fenerbahce. I don't really think that. I mean, I looked at the stats, and might get accused of stat padding, but I think we had about 9 or 10 shots in target. Fenerbahce had 3, and obviously 2 of them they scored, so they were pretty clinical with the chances that they created. Cherny had a few glorious chances that he kind of wasted. But first half especially, I thought we edged it in the first half. Obviously, it was a really poor time to concede a goal. I do like picking holes and everything, but to be fair, I just think that was a quality first goal that they scored last night. I mean, it was a cross. I think it did take a slight nick off sterling. But then the finish is pretty immense. I was actually, for the goal that Fenerbahce scored last week, at the time I was a wee bit critical of Butland for being off his line a wee bit, but again, sometimes you've just got to take your hat off, and it was a great goal for them to score, but it probably came at the worst possible time for us.
Yeah, it's a terrible time to concede a goal in any game, especially a game like that. But no, I mean the finish was pure quality. Like it really was a brilliant finish. But in terms of the performances, I've also been reading and hearing people say that we were really poor and we were off it and stuff. Going into the game, I expected Fenerbahce to obviously be a lot better than they were the previous week, and they were. But I didn't think by any stretch they outclassed us. I felt that it tells it, and I think it was 83 minutes. I remember noticing on the TV, and it was 16 shots each. So it shows you it wasn't a case of them absolutely battering us. I felt that we were clinical last week, and we weren't clinical this week, and that was the main difference. We were edgy at times, and particularly from when that goal went in, we were on edge a little bit, but that's to be expected. Particularly given our performances at Ibrox of late, and then you're going down, you conceding at a bad time, but we could have folded, going 1-0 down, going 2-0 down. I felt, we just weren't. I felt that we were playing well up until the final, the sort of composure, and in terms of the decision making. Even Cherney at times playing really, really well, looking good. But it was just that time, lay the ball off or take your shot when the opportunity is there. Take it with your right foot at a time rather than your left. Things like that. I think he was excellent. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying he wasn't, but I'm just saying. And there was another occasion. I think Nico Raskin was or in the first half had a great chance where he was through, and then just the composure. It was just that final action that kind of it went for us last week, but it just didn't this week. But I would say if it was to say that one of my friends was asking me there, who deserved to go through, who hadn't watched the game or whatever, and I would say Fenerbahce were probably the better side last night, but we were considerably more comprehensive and better in the first leg than they were in the second. So if you were to say who deserved to go through the tie, I have no doubt that it was Rangers, and I obviously am biased, but I would say watching that game, regardless of my bias, I thought the tie we were the better side. In terms of chances, in terms of taking our chances, in terms of creating chances, in terms of our control as well. I thought Fred was probably the best player on the pitch last night, and made a big difference to the game. But we were expecting them. They had nothing to lose, so we're expecting them to have a go, to come on to us a little bit more, and that maybe didn't suit us just as much in terms of us getting forward. But we didn't, and essentially we did the job. So and we hung in there. And I think that goal at the end of the first half really did rock us a little bit, and it sort of set the tone for after half time. Had we managed to go in at 0-0, I think the second half may well have been totally different, because they're really going to have to go, and things might open up for us.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree. To be honest, if you're just watching that game last night from a neutral perspective, I thought a draw would have been a fair result last night. I mean, we bossed the first game. Maybe Fenerbahce were slightly the better team last night, but it was maybe one of those ones where I would have felt last night a draw was a fair result. If Fenerbahce won it by one goal, you couldn't really complain. But either way, when you add up both games, we absolutely 100% deserve to go through. There's just no doubt about that whatsoever. And, we've not had much luck in penalty shootouts, as you said earlier. So, we'll certainly take it. One thing that we didn't seem to have much luck last night, and I think it's going to affect us in the first game for the next round against Bilbao, is the yellow card situation. I mean, it seemed in that first half, Ben, that every single challenge a Rangers player made, the referee was brandishing a yellow card, even for just random normal fouls that have been made. And it was really weird. Quite odd Fenerbahce players making exactly the same challenges, not getting punished in the same way. I think they only had one or two players that were booked. I do genuinely think we had about 6 or 7 players in the first half booked. And at the end of the day, we're through, and that's great. But it's going to affect us going into the first leg against Bilbao. And I also do think that had an impact on the second half performance. I think if Balogun's not booked, if Suter's not booked, and you know what Balogun's like, he gives his all, he's got tremendous heart, but he is guilty maybe sometimes of just, mistiming his challenges, and one of those ones where it's very easy for him to get booked. And it's the same with Suter. And with one of them, if they do something, out with what they should do, all it takes is one mistake and they're off the pitch. So I think that had a big impact in our second half performance, to be honest.
No, I'd agree with you. I mean, I was just talking to Frankie before we came on there, and there's two parts to that. The first part is I think it's ridiculous that you play 8 league games, or what were group games, and at that point, yellow cards should be wiped for me. I can't understand how it's still going. I understand now that they wipe it going into the semi-finals after this stage, but like eight games for a player, it should be wiped at that stage. There's no doubt. I mean, even the 6 games of what it used to be, it should be wiped. So that's very disappointing. But on the ref, yeah, that's the thing. And Super Ali was saying in the commentary, as well, was like, all we look for is consistency, right? So I understand that in European games they can be more card happy, they can be less happy about a tackle, excuse me, things like that. But they were making similar tackles that just weren't for some reason being booked. So if he's going to be like that and be consistent, and that's okay. And then he seemed to sort of to lose it from that point on and just be more worried about dissent and things like that rather than actually just refereeing the game. And it became quite a lot about the referee as opposed to just letting the game play. And I was disappointed from that point of view. But yeah, it definitely. I mean, I was quite worried when Balogun was booked quite early on, because as good as he is, but it restricts his game completely. He is an all action tackling defender, and we've seen it in the past. We've seen him get sent off the parquet, for a second yellow. So yeah, it worried me, and there's no doubt when it was fine margins in a game like that, particularly when you do go 1-0 down just before halftime, and then you're 2-0 down, and had we at that point somebody makes a second tackle and gets sent off, it certainly would have changed the game, and really would have made the task a lot harder for us. So yeah, I think I'd agree with you in terms of how the yellow cards would have changed our performance. We certainly couldn't go out and play in the same fashion, and the players had to be wary of that. And just on Suter as well, though, in terms of the game, especially considering that he was on a booking as well, I thought he was colossus over those two ties. I know he gets a lot of stick. I know there's a mistake in him, but I've always been a fan. I think he was brilliant. I think he put himself on the line, and particularly going back to last week's game as well, like just back in from an injury, looked like he'd never been out of there. And I mean, he must have had a sore head after the games, because he cleared plenty with that head. So yeah, no, brilliant.
He was. I mean, in terms of the referee, he'd be brilliant as a referee in Scotland because he was just making the game all about him. And I do think that, when you're in a cauldron like Ibrox, where the whole of Europe is watching, and I do think sometimes you get refs like that. And to be fair, I think we've seen it in this country as well. Like with the Old Firm games recently, because obviously there's not been any away fans, which will change this weekend, thankfully. But sometimes I do think you get the referee just intentionally trying to wind up the home support just because they want to. I mean, the one that comes to mind was John Beaton last year, the free each game, the goal that Dessler scored that was chalked off, and he goes to the VAR monitor and he points as if there's a goal, and then he just starts to wave his finger, and everybody thought it was a goal because even Chris Sutton in commentary says that's ridiculous because he felt that it should have been a foul and the goal not awarded. So referees making a show of themselves, trying to make it all about them. We're used to it in Scotland, so I'm sure if that ref last night applies for a job with the SFA, will be successful. But nah, I don't like it at all. And it's you need referees to obviously to have the game, but I just think some of them, they just love making it all about themselves for whatever weird reason.
A good referee you don't notice. That's is one that you shouldn't
Exactly.
say. Yeah.
Exactly. But as what it is. At least we get the job done. But hopefully it doesn't affect us too much going into the next round as well.
Those are big players missing, though. I mean, with Diamande and and particularly, I mean, I suppose either way, you don't want them missing for the away leg, but for the home game, which is the game where we really want to try and put our stamp on the
Yeah,
tie, to be missing those two it's a big blow, I
yeah.
must say.
I think more so Diamande. I think we centre half you can kind of chop and change, and also it was excellent. But maybe if you could, it's just Glasgow for you. Maybe if you can get another replacement, and that's fine. But I think Diamande, again, I'm not his biggest fan, certainly domestically, but in Europe, I think
Yeah.
he's suited to a European game, and he does make a difference. There is nobody in our team that can do what Diamande can do in a European game in terms of creating space, his movement, close control of the ball. So that's going to be difficult, and as you say, especially a home leg where we're going to be expected to take it to Bilbao. You're hopeful to go over there with a lead, so it'll be difficult. But we just need to get on with it and hope that we can get the job done. The second goal, Ben, we mentioned him earlier, Yefty. I think he's at fault for it. He doesn't pick up his man properly. Yeah, I mean, I think Yefty's decent overall, but I don't want to be overly harsh on him because I know he's young, etc., etc., etc. But he has made a few big errors. Man United, obviously. And you're thinking, right, maybe he's going to learn fit. He does one against, I think it was Motherwell, a week or so ago, and then again last night. So you're kind of going, is this guy actually learning his lessons here? And he's going to have to learn it, because if he's playing on Sunday, and I think he probably will play him on Sunday because he is a great carrier of the ball and he can get us up the pitch. But if he's coming up against, a Jota, a Kun, a Maida, and he's doing what he was doing last night or against Motherwell, they'll have an absolute field day with him. So I don't want to be like overly critical, even if it does seem it, but he is guilty of a few of these errors, and he really does need to stamp it out, I think.
No, the thing with Yefte is there's a player there. There's no doubt that there's a player there. He's good going forward. I think that he's actually had too much football in terms of what we expected for the season. I look at big games and he has made mistakes. Now, again, I'm not wanting to go over the top on him either, because I do think he's a good player. I think he's made strides. He has had a good season, but defensively, there has been too many of these. I'm looking at even the League Cup semi-final against Motherwell. He was nowhere at the back post. That's happened a couple of times. That was poor for the goal last night, I must say. And my thing is, he will learn and he will improve. He's a young player, and this is his first season with us. It's his first season playing week in, week out football. New country, all the rest of it. But the thing that I think should have happened is when the mistakes happen at certain occasions, he should have been. And I know there's been injuries with Yilmaz, but he should have been taken out of the firing line a wee bit here and there, and shown that there's consequences. Because I don't think it's good for any player to just know, here, regardless of what mistake I make or how I play, I'm going to play every week, and that's been the case with him. So I think it should have happened that he's. Well, actually, regardless of whether he's made mistakes or not, I think it's good for a young player to come in, to come out. Unless he's getting 3 assists a game or something like that. Obviously, you're not going to take him out. But I think it's important that he sees that he does have to fight for his place at the same time. I don't think Yilmaz is necessarily the answer either. And I think Yilmaz has done well playing out of position and stuff in some aspects. But I think giving him a chance at left back would make sense in some games. But I don't expect it to happen certainly for this week. But I think between now and the end of the season, I would like to see them both sort of given a chance in there, because I think the jury's out on both, really. I don't think the jury's out in Yefty in terms of we'd like to see him leaving the club. I just mean the jury's out in terms of, can he be the left back that we need him to be every single week of a season that's going to win us a league? So I think it's important that we sort of look at all options there from that point of view, and I suppose as well, just from a period of giving him a rest. He's a young player. Yes, he should have energy and stuff like that, but I think just being able to, you can learn by watching too, and he can learn the game, and it shows him that there are standards and there are requirements. Yes, you might be good carrying the ball, but first and foremost, we need to be able to defend. I mean, how long did it go on where Borna Barisic was getting done that same goal at the back post? And nothing changed, but that's maybe we didn't demand that of him as a club, and we didn't, push him. And was there any other options? No, not really. Now we do have them. So, and I'm not saying take him out and never play him again, because I do think he's great, and I think he has made a good start to his Rangers career. But there have been too many instances with that, and we need him to be improving on it. We need to see that he's learning from these mistakes. It's okay to make the mistakes as a young player. We'd prefer he didn't, but it's going to happen. But we need to see that we're trying to address this, and we're trying to focus on his defending.
Yeah, I think you were quite fair there, Ben. Quite similar with Anciala. He was really good when he first sort of came in. He didn't look out of place at all. Then had those massive errors against St Mirren, and then Rugby Park as well. And Fergie just subbed him. And a lot of people are saying that was harsh. At the end of the day, they've got to learn.
Yep.
Quite frankly, I don't care if it's harsh. This is Rangers. It doesn't matter whether you're 16 or 40, like David Weir was playing towards the end of your career. There does need to be consequences if you are not up to standard. And I'm not saying that these guys can't have a future at the club. I think they will. But it's about how they act to it. And it's an interesting point you make in terms of sort of taking them at the firing line, Yefty, because I think that's something that we've not done. And, maybe it is because we've not quite had the squad to do it. But you just don't want them to be in that position where you think, oh, well, my spot's safe. Kind of like it was with Barisic for a while. And then, because I think that just, familiarity breeds contempt, as the saying goes. So hopefully he can kick it out, but we'll see certainly what happens coming into season, because it's going to be another big test for him if he does play in it. I do think he will start, but we'll come on to that later. Extra time came and gone. Not really much happened, to be honest. We'll just skip straight to penalties. Oh, geez, as I said earlier, Ben, I did not fancy us at all. Just as I say, for me, penalties, it's a mentality thing. Despite how good last night was in terms of mentality, I still think there is a gap there with a lot of these players. But maybe that's something that Ferguson's changed or trying to address. But to be fair, every penalty, even Hagi's penalty, to be fair, that's a good save. I don't think that was a bad penalty by Hagi. Keeper goes the right way, it's a good save. What happens. But the Fenerbahce players, I mean, I think Buckland's save, certainly for the first one, is good. Second one, the penalty's no great, and obviously the guy skied the third penalty. For me, that was playing down at the Copeland. That was at Ibrox atmosphere, getting to the Fenerbahce players. And sometimes a toss and a penalty shootout can be what team can go on to win it, depending on what end it goes to. But fair play to the players that stepped up. Absolutely brilliant. And as I say, Hagi's penalty, he missed it, but I don't think it was a bad penalty, to be fair to him.
No, it wasn't a bad penalty. And listen, I'll never criticise anyone that steps up. And
well, unless they absolutely sky it, like David Beckham, Euro 2004.
Against Turkey, funny enough. If you get it on target and you hit a decent penalty, then if the keeper saves it, that well done the keeper. But no, we stood up when it mattered, which is something that many times has not been the case and has been questioned and still can be questioned. But yeah, I don't know. I was relatively confident about the penalty shootout. I just don't know what it was. I just think mentality, I think, is the one thing that we're going to get from Barry Ferguson. And I was more confident going into that with Barry Ferguson there than maybe the previous management. I think the one thing he will drill into these players, he may be lacking in terms of experience or in terms of tactics or things like that. But the one thing he does know is Rangers and what it takes and mentality, and he will set standards. And that doesn't mean that nobody's going to miss a penalty. But I think I think I think his appointment makes sense from that point of view, from just being able to get the maximum out of us in terms of that mentality. Between now and the end of the season, when there wasn't a whole lot to play for other than Europe. So yeah, no, fair play to the players. What more can you say? We stepped up and we made it happen. And equally, if it had gone the other way, I don't think it would have been solely because we don't have the right mentality. That's penalties at times. It can happen, but we were comfortable. But I do think the crowd played a big part in it. I agree with you. I wouldn't have fancied being an opposition player with the flags, behind there going like that. So no, the 12th man certainly played a part too. But yeah.
No, the fans were brilliant last night.
Mm-hmm.
I'm still sore today. Just like it was bedlam when that penalty gets skied. Gone down about 3 or 4 rows. And as I say, my legs are still sore today after it. But it was bedlam, and it's just good that despite how bad this season's been, at least we've got something to look forward to. Because one thing. It's one thing getting knocked out last night, which is bad enough. But if we did get knocked out last night, it's the middle of March. We've basically got no proper competitive games to play, probably for about 5 or 6 months until the season starts. Which, I know, we're trying to be in a relatively buoyant mood given everything that's happening with the takeover and stuff, and that will come in its own time. But my God, what a drag the next couple of months would be. But at least now we've got, I think, the Bilbao games in about a month's time. So
10th of April,
yeah, that's the first leg. So you've got 3-4 weeks at least. For the next 3 or 4 weeks, we can look forward to something. And it might spur us on to have a decent end to the season. It is a massive task. I think in the next round, Bilbao are a good side. I've seen some of their game against Porto yesterday, who are a top side, and I thought they absolutely brushed them aside, to be quite honest. Get some great players there, and it's a tough stadium to go to. Their crowd as well look like they're absolutely up for it and rocking. It certainly looked like that last night, so it'll be a tough game. But can we dare to dream? Could this be a dress rehearsal for the main event in May?
Well, why wouldn't you dream? I think on paper, it's going to be a very, very tough task. But you know what? On paper, we weren't supposed to beat them, Fenerbahce. On paper, we weren't supposed to beat Dortmund when we got to Seville. Leipzig for the same time. I try not to get my hopes up, rather because and just hopefully be pleasantly surprised. I'd be honest, going into this tie against Fenerbahce, I thought we'd very little chance, and that was even under Clement, who had a good record, but they've stepped up, and they do step up time and again. And the fact that this is literally all they have, I know we have league games, but this is all we have to focus on. It's a tough ask, but I would obviously have preferred the second leg to be at Ibrox. But if we can get out there, go out there with a lead, then you never know. You just never know. Barry's had plenty of experience under Walter Smith trying to do that. Going out there and playing defensively and managing to get a result that, again, we shouldn't really be getting on paper. But the game isn't played on paper, and those players stepped up for us last week, and they know that they owe us in terms of what the season has been like in general. Barry, as we've touched on earlier, will have us fired up. So, I'm trying to be positive but realistic at the same time. I know it's hard, but at the end of the day, we have yet again, been a success in Europe this season. To get to the quarterfinal is a success, given everything, given that it is a transition year, all that, and how our form has been domestically. And we've the first success was to qualify in the top 8, and qualifying in the top 8, playing against most of the top 8 as well. And then obviously beating a team that we're not expected to beat over 2 legs. And we have to take confidence from that. There's no doubt about that. And European football seems to suit these players. So I hope that will continue.
Why not, indeed? Let's dare to dream. It'll give us something to look forward to anyway. We've got a game on Sunday, Ben.
It's hard to.
I mean, that's the thing. I mean, Old Firm game on Sunday, and I've genuinely not thought about it until you're like, oh, we're playing Celtic on Sunday at that place. And it will change, Saturday night going into at midnight going into Sunday morning, etc., etc., etc. I must admit, as much as last night was good in terms of the mentality, we were absolutely running on empty towards the end. There is a worry in me, and Celtic, they are a good side. They'll fancy their chances. They'll be the favourites, etc., etc. They've got home advantage, and they've also had a full week to prepare, because they like to get knocked out of Europe early every year. So it's going to be a tough ask, but these players just need to go out and lay everything on the line. It's the international break. This is the last game before it. As you say, the season's been rubbish, and we talk about Ferguson spoke earlier. We need to go there and get a result. As far as I'm concerned, the only result that can constitute a good result on Sunday is winning, because normally you would go to Parkhead and think, I'd take a draw, but that's only if the league's like tight and close, and you go win the games at Ibrox, and if you draw away, you'll be doing well, and you're in a good position. We're about 16 points behind or something like that. I've genuinely lost count. A draw doesn't really do much in terms of lifting our fans' moods and spirit against them. But we need to go into it confident after Thursday. We need to go into it confident as well, I think, after the last 2 performances against Celtic. And even the last time we did go to Parkhead, we did get beat 3-0, but I still don't think it was a 3-0 game. Celtic were the better team that deserved to win 100%. I'm not saying that, but first 10, 15 minutes of the first half, first 10, 15 minutes of the second half, we could have had a couple of goals ourselves, and it was the moments that let us down. Maybe Barry Ferguson can get those players to fine tune these moments. He's going to know what it's all about. We're going to have a travelling band of Rangers fans there on Sunday for the first time in years to cheer the players on. So, why not? I mean, we're not going to win the league this year, right? But what we can at least do is try and get a decent head-to-head record against Celtic to show that we can match them in individual games. And then if we can go and, get a result on Sunday, get a result the next Old Firm game, then that proves beyond reasonable doubt that it's not so much that Celtic won the league, it's that we've lost it, because we've not been able to beat Motherwell at home, St Mirren at home, blah, 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 blah. So I think if we can at least match them in the results this season, it can give us a bit of belief going into next season. But it's an Old Firm game, it's a big game, there's no such thing as a meaningless one. The Celtic fans are going to be up for it as well, because they know that they're about to clinch the title, and that can get a wee bit closer on Sunday as well. The away fans are going to be back, so let's just go for it, lay it all on the line and see where it gets us.
Yeah, I mean, I'm more confident again going there with Barry Ferguson in charge in terms of getting the team up for it than with Clement. So there's one positive in our favour. I'm concerned that we've just played our hearts out in the extra time. Although the last time we did that in a European game and then played them 2 days later was this cup semi-final. We ended up beating them, and we were supposedly dead on our feet at that stage. Sometimes, for some reason, I seem to think this Rangers team are better just going straight into another game. When we've had a week, we had a week before the St Mirren game. We had a week, I think, before the Motherwell game, if I'm correct. Yeah, Queen's Park. Sorry, yeah, as well. And it certainly didn't pay off for us on those occasions. The less said, the better. But yeah, so for some reason, adrenaline should take you into a game like this. With 2 days to get ourselves going, but we should be on a high. We've just qualified for the quarterfinals of European Trophy, as I've said. We've beaten them the last 2 times we've played them. We've played them off the park, in my opinion. We've only been on the winning side on one occasion, but we should have confidence from that. There's no doubt about that. As you said there, we've lost this league title by not being able to beat the rest of the teams because they beat us 3-0 and we beat them 3-0. So we are equal with them. I think we will have to make changes. I would be surprised to see 90 minutes out of Cherney, put it that way. He looked dead on his feet, getting a massage before the second period of extra time. And really looked like he had nothing left to give because he gave everything, and that's fine. He did give everything. But I think it's important that we go there without, and I think this is something that Barry will give us. Sometimes we've gone there, in my opinion, a beaten team in the last few years, before it's kicked off, and having this inferiority complex, which we have now proven in the last two games, as I've said, that we can match them and better them. So we need to go there and try and set the tone. I know. Obviously, they're going to have the crowd. They're at home. They're going to try and play. But the one thing that we haven't let them do in the cup final or in the January game was settle into their game, which is something that we've been guilty of for so long, sitting off them, letting McGregor dictate the game. If we can get in their faces, we can be, which actually we did. That 3-0 game you were talking about earlier in the season at Parkhead, we did start that. We pressed high. We were brilliant. We just crumbled after it was. I think it was the disallowed goal, and then we just crumbled from that point onwards.
I mean, and see, to be fair with that one, is like if you compare the two league games anyway, right? Celtic, obviously both of them are 3-0 games. As I say, I don't think that first game was a 3-0 if you look at it from a neutral point of view. But that game in January, that was 3 going on 4, 5, 6, 7. That wasn't the case the first game at Parkhead. So that's what we need to try and get confidence from.
Yeah, no, we do. We need to go in with the confidence and with the mentality. And as I've said, I think Barry will instill that into us. He won't accept some of the things that I think Clement probably will. And he will not give the players excuses before they go out there. It's about going out there and representing the club. I'm delighted our fans are back as well, which hopefully will give us, it's a game of percentages, and hopefully I know obviously we'll have the minority amount of fans, but hopefully that gives us an extra percentage here and there, just to know they're out there playing, they have support there. So I think how we approach the game is very, very important, because if we sit back and appear tired and we use those as excuses, we could get a doing. But if we go out there and we set the tone, and we take the game to them and show that, all right, we might be 16 points behind, but what we need to do is be showing that there's not 16 points difference between the teams between now and the end of the season. We need to be showing, setting the tone, and these players should be, I would also think that with takeover in mind and things like that, they need to be showing that they're good enough and that they want to play for Rangers. And the new manager, whoever the new manager is, will be out there watching this game, somewhere, I'm sure, or will eventually watch this game, and they need to be laying down the marker and showing that they get it, that they know what Rangers is about. Yes, there's excuses in there. Yes, we could be tired and all that, but as you said, you'll get a rest for 2 weeks after, for a week after, whatever. So go out there, give your all, and represent the club.
That's it. As I say, go out there, give it your all, leave everything on the line, and see what happens. But we are capable. We have shown, in 90 minutes that, as you say, we can at least match them and beat them as well. So, I'm a relatively positive guy, despite what some people might think. So, there's no reason why we can't go there and try our best and try and get a win. But as I say, we'll see what happens. But I think we'll probably wrap up there then. Ben, thanks very much for joining me. I will be back on Sunday, guys, with a little from. I'll be on the Stuart. That'll be at 9:30 on Sunday night. Again, we are live on YouTube tonight, and we'll be on all of your usual podcast platforms in the next few hours as well. All that's left to do now is thank you guys for joining me. Ben, thanks for joining me as always, mate.
Yes, cheers, Craig. Thank you.
Been an absolute pleasure, and thanks to the audience at home. See you later, guys. I hope the team wins on Sunday. Bye bye.